I'm going to beat my troll. Multiple. I'm going to beat them. They might all be one person for all I know, but I'm going to annoy him more than he annoys me, and eventually he will give up. It says in Matthew, whatever, truly I tell you, whatever you did for me, for the one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Jesus would have been turned away at the border because he was brown. Jesus was a progressive socialist. So I said, you couldn't possibly know that Jesus would be turned away at the border. I don't think even you believe that. It's just a talking point. Comparing now to the times that Jesus was around doesn't prove a point. Why would it matter if Jesus was turned away at the border? Do you not know who he is and what he's capable of? And then I also have to include this person because I'm not 100% sure that they aren't the same person, but I had a mix up with them. I'll show you. But this one, he says, why are you always crying? Makes me worried about your kids under your care. So I say, I feel the same about you and any children that might find themselves under your care, since you clearly can't tell when a person is crying or not. Jumping to a conclusion and then being worried about my children says a lot more about you than it does me. You may want to talk to somebody about that. He says, back then, laugh out loud, medicine didn't exist. We didn't have soap, antibiotics, or exam rooms. She's talking about 400 BCE. The medicine she's talking about is praying to healing gods. And then that other guy says, the original Hippocratic Oath began with whatever. If medicine was about facts back then, are you suggesting that there is more than one God? Not very Christian of you. Also, the oath specifically says, I will not give to a woman a pessary to cause abortion. That doesn't mean abortion is fine as long as a pessary is used. So I responded, they had herbs, surgery, midwives, and natural remedies. Yes, they also invoked gods because that was their culture framework. But even in that ancient context where almost everything was permitted, they still drew a line at abortion. That says a lot about how deeply the value of protecting life was woven into their practice. I don't think people understand the miracle that happens when two people's DNA come together to create a whole new person. When there are women whose worst days are spent miscarrying in the shower or on the toilet, there shouldn't be women who celebrate that exact same thing on purpose. It's evil. P.S. Who are you talking to if you're referring to me as she? And then to this guy, I said, my point isn't that hypocrites was Christian. It's that medical community recognized early on that intentionally ending life was incompatible with the role of a healer. As for the pessary, that was one method, but the spirit of the oath was broader. Doctors shouldn't be the ones to cause harm or deliberately end a life. That principle carried through history until modern revision started removing it. So then this person responds, my point is that if you're going to hold up the Hippocratic Oath as justification for the abolition of abortion, you can't cherry pick. You say doctors shouldn't be the ones to cause harm or deliberately end a life. However, the interpretation of this passage wasn't so clear. Whether it was a ban or pessaries or a ban on all abortion methods was debated even in ancient times. Some medical practitioners were unwilling to administer abortions at all, while others, including himself, would perform abortions if the mother's health was at risk. Aside from that, other Hippocratic texts called on the nature of the child contain a description of an abortion without any suggestion that it was banned or morally wrong. And lastly, medical professionals have ended life for various reasons throughout history. Expressed support for the use of hemlock to end childbirth was very dangerous before modern medicine. In cases where the child was at risk, a cesarean section was an option, which would almost always end with the mother dying from blood loss. And yes, abortions were routinely performed or prescribed by ancient Greek and Roman physicians, regardless of what the oath said. In fact, for much of history, it wasn't considered homicide unless an abortion was performed after quickening. So then I said, at no point have I ever said the Hippocratic Oath is justification to abolish abortion. That's a completely made-up situation that exists only in your mind. What I did say, and what I meant, is even back then, in a time where almost anything was acceptable, they still drew a line when it came to protecting life. It matters. It shows that the idea of respecting life isn't some new political invention. It's been a principle tied to medicine since the very beginning. So let's not twist my words. The point was simple. Life was valued then, and it should be valued now. Oh, and he likes to point out that I don't work. So she doesn't work, by the way. It never has. So I just said, yeah, I'm very lucky to have been able to stay at home to raise my kids. It's quite a bit of work raising good people. And then this guy, you talk a lot about responsibility. And I ask how you manage to pay rent and support your family. Last I checked, you didn't have a husband or a job. So are you dependent on your parents? Do you get child support from your ex? Do you get unemployment benefits from the government? So I said, I made an agreement with my parents a few years back that they'll help me out now while my daughters are still little. Then once my kids don't need me, I'll take over the bills and responsibility of taking care of the family. I don't get child support or any sort of unemployment. I get the child tax credit that everybody gets, but that's it. I put my kids above everything, so whatever you're trying to get at, you flat out have it wrong. I appreciate the engagement, though. Every time you comment, you only push my videos out to the people they're meant for. You're more than welcome not to like me. I'm not going to debate your comment, or I'm not going to delete your comment. I'm hoping someday you'll do some serious reflection about the type of person you choose to be and the sort of message you want to put out. It's not a very positive one, if you're wondering. It gives anger for absolutely no good reason, big time, without any evidence whatsoever. Notice how this theory piqued your curiosity, but you did nothing to seek out answers? That's your problem. Don't worry, I've done the hard part for you again. George Bush was visiting Emma E. Booker Elementary School to promote his administration's No Child Left Behind Act policy. This was meant to help disadvantaged students through standard-based education reform. It ended up doing more harm than good, but that's besides the point. No shit. The school Bush was visiting was in a primarily African-American part of Sarasota. The school was established to serve black students during segregation. Bush was visiting a disadvantaged school to push policy that was meant to help disadvantaged students. It's really that simple. Don't you think if that student or teacher had something to say about a conspiracy, they would have said something by now? Don't you think you would have heard about it? If there was any solid evidence that Bush did 9/11, it would have been national news. So I said, you're fun. I said, what about the plane's black box being missing? What about all the people who heard bombs going off? How do you explain nobody on scene seeing a plane? Only the people who watched it on the news. How do you explain the elevator operators all refusing to work that day? Do you just ignore all the money gained by insurance policies and all the documents vaporized right before everybody switched to digital? I think it's silly just to believe the explanation given by people who consistently actively lie in order to keep people emotional. I think people with closed minds like yours are absolutely terrifying. People should never stop asking questions. And then this guy, his comment. First of all, what does the classroom being full of black children have to do with literally anything? Obvious racism. Second, you also believe in the earth is flat, right? Right, hon? So I say, obviously racism. End of conversation. Sorry, I don't have time for ignorant people. Impactful contribution to society doesn't come from having a job. It comes from the connections you can create. Now we're back to this. I'm not twisting your words. What do you mean by life was valued then, it should be valued now? Within the context of your video, you're clearly talking about abortion. You are using a short passage from an ancient text, ignoring the parts that don't align with your beliefs, and saying that abortions should be illegal. It's fine if you came to that conclusion from a moralistic point of view. Just don't use ancient text as justification, especially when the interpretation of that text was unclear, even in the ancient world. And you ignored the rest of my comment, which is fair, it was long. To summarize, you were overlooking the fact that abortions were performed in the ancient world, along with other life-ending procedures and prescriptions. So I respond, I have a feeling that what we're trying to say isn't getting through properly. I understand that abortion existed in ancient times. My point is that they weren't performed by doctors. Doctors preserved new life. Abortions were induced with herbs and all kinds of concoctions. You couldn't go to a doctor looking to murder your offspring. There will always be shitty people who care more about their own personal happiness. That's never going to be up for debate. And just FYI, there's no medical condition where you need to murder the infant in the mother's womb. That's just a made-up situation people have used to justify abortion. People finally stopped accepting that as an answer and looked into it deeper and got to the bottom of it. If a mother has cancer, she could postpone treatment until after giving birth. She could get induced early or have a C-section as early as 23 weeks. It's always just been manipulation to justify child sacrifice. I know it sounds dramatic, but I promise it's true. And then he says, are there any conspiracy theories you haven't fallen for? So I say, look into where the term conspiracy theorist comes from. So he says, I bet you were big time into Q, but now that everything points to Trump, you aren't interested anymore. I still have no idea. And then this guy, I despise Charlie Kirk, but nobody deserves to die like that. I feel for his wife and children, especially who were apparently in the audience. Political violence is wrong, and it only leads to more violence. It's a sign of deeply unhealthy democracy. That being said, I hope you have the same kind of energy when people on the left are murdered. Just 2 months ago, a Democratic legislator was killed in her home along with her husband and dog. Another Democratic legislator was shot in his home along with his wife, but they fortunately survived. All of them had children. Trump refused to even call the Minnesota governor. Conservatives were laughing about it on Twitter, just like they laughed at the assassination attempt on Paul Pelosi. They spread vile misinformation about the shooter and the victims. Try and keep that in mind the next time someone ends up a victim of political violence. So I responded, anybody who would despise someone for speaking to college kids, opening up people's minds to other ways of thinking and looking at things, there's something not right. It wouldn't matter who it was. Anybody or nobody deserved to be assassinated for millions of people to see. I was at a football game and my kids at home saw the video before I got home. The fact that you've even thinking beyond what a horrific loss this is for the world. Another man will raise his babies because people listen to other people's opinion of him rather than listening to his own words. I'm so incredibly disappointed that there are people sick enough to celebrate this sort of madness. It really is too bad people stop believing that God is watching and that they'll have to answer for their disgusting choices in life. He says, they caught him. He was a registered independent who comes from a Christian conservative family. And somebody his same age from his exact same town with his exact same name donated hundreds of dollars to Trump campaigns. Wow, it's like everything you assumed was exactly wrong. So I said, I rewatched this. What assumptions, specifically crazy pants? Wow, it's like people talk and you hear something completely different and then blame them for it. You really, really should talk to someone about that. And this guy again. I'm going to try again in what I said the other day, which I believe you misunderstood. I hope you'll read my entire comment because I think it's important. I think empathy across the aisle is paramount in times like these. I am liberal, and though I deeply disagree with Charlie Kirk's political position, and I feel that his rhetoric was harmful, I would never justify his murder. I feel horrible for his family and for all conservatives, including yourself, whose hearts are broken right now. There are a lot of horrible people on social media who are celebrating his death, and I completely reject anyone who's involved in that or justifying political violence. Now, I hope you were able to see a few things from my perspective on the left. What I saw after the assassination of Charlie Kirk was the immediate demonization of liberals from prominent conservatives. I'm not talking about random people on Twitter. I'm talking about Elon Musk, who tweeted, if they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is to fight or die. I saw Laura Loomer tweet, we must shut these lunatic leftists down once and for all. I saw libs of TikTok tweet, this is war. I saw the president of the United States blame the death of Charlie Kirk on radical left before we even had a photograph of the shooter. We had Jesse Waters, Joey, whatever, all these people, and so many more share similar sentiments. You will not find a single prominent Democrat that didn't immediately disavow the shooter and ask for nonviolence. Contrast this for when the Minnesota shooter, which I believe is what your mother was referencing, took the lives of a Democratic legislator and her husband. Prominent Republicans were either silent or made jokes about it. Trump wouldn't call their governor. You say that people on the right don't wish violence on anybody. According to the ADL, about 75% of extremist-related murders in the U.S. from 2013 to 2022 were committed by right-wing extremists, while the left-wing extremists accounted for about 4%. We already know that this is all skewed. This isn't the studies. Ask ChatGPT or Grok if you'd like. I could list so many examples of right-wing politicians or talking heads calling for violence, but this comment is getting so long, so I'll spare you. The reason I say all of this is not to call out everyone on the right or to defend insensitive people on the left. It isn't a justification of what happened to Charlie Kirk. I'm simply begging you to see that social media platforms are skewing our views of the world. There are thousands of deplorable people on the left, and Twitter is happy to blast you with these people because it makes you angry and keeps you scrolling. What your algorithm is hiding are the thousands of people on the left that aren't hateful, and the thousands of people on the right who are. There are radicals on both sides who are trying to divide us and make us hate each other. We need to bring down the temperature, and we aren't going to get there when one side cheers at the deaths of the other. We also aren't going to get there when one side calls for civil war against the other whenever a deranged lunatic attacks someone they're aligned with. Though you might not believe it based on my comment history, I want the best for you and your family and our country. We just have very different views on what makes our country great. As Charlie Kirk believed, the best way to sort out our differences is through kindness and understanding, and not demonization, and certainly not violence. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. So then I responded, I'm not sure who raised you, but you don't show up acting like a piece of shit, and then finally once you get tired of us talking past each other, expect me to spend any amount of time responding to you. I would have been more than happy to message back and forth or do a video debate, whatever you wanted, as long as there was mutual respect. But there isn't, because of how you conduct yourself. I highly suggest taking a long, hard look in the mirror. If you want people to respond to your questions and comments, try behaving like a decent human being, and you might get your answers. And this one, are you kidding me? The right has collectively been out for blood for anybody who doesn't mourn for this POS properly. They want to go to war over a bigot who your own side took out. Political violence is not the answer, but I'll say it again. I didn't shed a tear for Charlie. He was a bad person. So I responded, yeah, he'll go down in history as one of the best men who ever walked the earth. You've seen clips of things he said, but don't seem to notice the variety of people he's always willing to engage with. You missed the genuine advice he was willing to give to anybody willing to ask the question. You should definitely continue watching and listening to all the same people who lie and manipulate in order to keep everybody so angry and emotional. They should be thanking you for the amount of time you spend spreading hate online about people you've never actually met. And he says, you are a super pro-racist bigot. How is that better in a teacher than being anti-racist bigot? So I said, you should probably start reading your comments over again before hitting the send button. I have no idea what dumb thing you're trying to get across, but name calling is for children. If you can't get your point across without calling someone outside of their name, it's really not worth making. It only looks bad on you. It says you can reproduce that one effect, but none of the rest of the pieces fall into place. You realize by believing this, everyone you meet immediately knows that you are a complete moron, right? sheep herders had this stuff figured out thousands of years ago, because sheep herders in 500 BC were leagues smarter than you are. So I said, I hope you know that you make me feel famous every single time you take the time out of your day to try and ruin mine. I missed you these last few days. Where have you been? Oh, P.S. I don't introduce myself with my beliefs about the world, so this really wouldn't ever be an issue. I like how you have to go out of your way to insult me by putting the dash in the middle. It must have been worth it. Oh, this is just him. I like how you won't respond to 99% of what I say, but will still reply to half my comments. That makes sense. Think I'm not worth talking to. So I say, nothing better to do than to push my video out to more people, I suppose. I always appreciate it. What's so hard to understand? You leave rude comments trying to offend me. I read the comments. I let you know how much I appreciate you helping me get the message out to more people and watch the view count go up. Or are you missing something? And he says, as someone who doesn't work, you should be terrified of a future where Social Security is disappearing. I know you're not in the US, but your kids will never ever get to retire. They will work until they're 80 years old if they're lucky enough to live that long. They will not collect any Social Security income because it's being gutted. And so help them if they have medical issues. The US government, which is entirely controlled by MAGA right now, just shut down the government to increase drug prices. And they are actually trying to blame the Dems. I feel bad about being mean to you because I don't feel bad about being mean to you because you actively hurt our future, and especially our kids' futures. So I said, I don't waste a lot of time worrying about things I have no control over. I'm setting myself and my kids up to self-sustain. He says, logically, because he is not good. Actually, because God is not real. So I said, in your sad little world, I have no doubt that that's true. She is desperately trying to defend the rapist, but she gets all tangled into pretzels in her head doing it. So I said, in a world where you'd get punished for spreading lies, I doubt you'd be such a tough guy. I don't see you putting your face and your beliefs on the internet for attention-seeking twats, trying anything to get you upset. You're just a coward hiding behind your keyboard, and I'm happy to have my videos spread to more people if all I have to do is deal with you. And this other guy says, you said the moon isn't something that could be traveled to, or God would have mentioned it. God never mentioned traveling to the Americas. In fact, the furthest location the Bible referenced in Spain to the west and Turkey to the east. Seeing as you live in Canada, I would hope you would agree that it is a real place you can travel to despite not being mentioned by God. So I said, if you actually pick up a Bible, it's got maps explaining that sort of stuff. Usually when somebody says something like this, it piques my interest, and then I have another topic to research and then tell people about it, but there's nothing there. America would just be included under land, just like the sun and moon. Just like the sun and moon were both created on the same day. Why you would think one is made out of solid rock and the other plasma is more interesting to me than anything. So he says, the Bible itself does not have any maps. There are modern versions of the Bible that are supplemented with maps, but they aren't part of the whatever text. My point is pretty clear. There are plenty of things that exist that aren't mentioned in the Bible, and there are plenty of things in the Bible that don't exist. The Bible doesn't mention dinosaurs, electricity, the internet, DNA, or languages that didn't exist at the time, like English or Spanish. The Bible talks about mythical creatures like Leviathan, behemoths, behemoth? I thought that's real. Whatever, and dragons. And let's not forget that the Bible has rules for owning slaves. Oh my God. Advocates that people who commit adultery or blasphemy should be stoned to death. And states that women captured in a war can become concubines. They do. Have you ever cursed your parents or worked on the Sabbath? Because if so, the Bible calls for the death penalty. Oh, jeez. As for the moon, we have so much proof that it's solid rock that it's indisputable. But frankly, you won't believe anything that I say, so why would I even bother? Logic is superseded by a 2,000-year-old book that was written by humans hundreds of years after the described events were meant to have taken place, translated multiple times, and revised by multiple governing bodies. So I screenshotted it and put it into ChatGPT, and yeah. He says, if that happens to your daughter, would you say, oh, well, it's God's plan? Disgusting. So I said, I'd say, man, I wish our world wasn't so full of disgusting, hateful people who wish bad things upon others just for having a different opinion. I wish more people would take the time to get to know God like I know him. And then while leaning on my God, I deal with the situation. Just like how you have no idea that I've been at a funeral and dealing with my family the entire time. I have you commenting, having ChatGPT write your responses. It's how grown adults who contribute something into the world live. You should try it sometime. This is my mix-up here. Okay, and then he says, a CK van just stalked and brutally murdered 2 Hispanic girls for making fun of Charlie. I expect a video from you about political violence coming from the right ASAP. So I said, what? You don't think when you talk a big game you shouldn't find out? Women particularly need to learn not to start shit with someone bigger and stronger than you. It's a lesson I'm working on with my 6-year-old. So here he says, that entire post was a deflection, but accusing me of using ChatGPT is a compliment, I guess, even though my spelling errors make it obvious I'm not. However, you have been caught multiple times posting ChatGPT comments, just projection, embarrassing. So I say, nope. What you see is exactly what I typed into ChatGPT, and the response I got, you're busted. I feel stupid now because I was wrong, but this is just how it all started. And then he says, literally, you talking about yourself. And I said, I'm about to respond, but then I keep reading, you're talking about yourself, and I can't even wrap my head around that being the conclusion you reached. The confusion is definitely on my part. I got you mixed up with another guy that likes to leave dumbass comments to push my video out to more people it's meant for, but you thought she's brought up ChatGPT while she herself uses ChatGPT. She must be talking about herself. Really? The government is shut down even though both houses are controlled by Republicans for one reason: block the release of the Epstein files because they have the votes now. Shame. Everything else is a distraction, including sending the American military into liberal cities and increasing violence. So I said, the government is shut down because the left are a bunch of babies who refuse to work when someone tells them no. He says, Sarah, like I said, MAGA has the majority of the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. There is nothing Dems can do to stop them doing whatever they want, but they still shut down the government and blame the Dems. So obviously, everybody else can see but you. So I say, do you think Trump is responsible for the government shutdown? How dense are you? Do you understand how much falls onto him because of the Democrats throwing a fit over healthcare for illegal immigrants? This has already been proven. Where have you been? And he says the government is shut down to avoid releasing the Epstein, or evidence that Trump was best friends with Epstein, which we already know. So I say, right, because him being the only person willing to talk to reporters about him is definitely a sign of his guilt. That and having something to do with having him put in jail when Epstein went to jail for sex with underage girls, not this last time when he killed himself. You honestly have to be the worst judge of character. All I have to know about you is that you spend way too much of your time writing comments rather than putting your own beliefs out for people to challenge you on. Your opinion is absolutely worthless because you're clearly just a big jerk. I would have been more than happy to engage with you if you would have come to me without the I'm so much smarter than you attitude, because for one, you aren't. I wouldn't mind if you were, and I'd have no problem admitting it. I take feedback. I like to hear the other side of things, but you need some serious work on communicating if you ever plan on actually changing somebody's mind about something. I think this is continuing. So I say to him, not my problem, you don't know your history. A quick Google search could have saved you from the confusion. So he says, she can't and won't explain, but trust her, she's right, according to her. And I don't know why he keeps talking to me, like, he refers to me as her and she. So somebody commented, he likes to comment on anybody who leaves something, like, nice for me, like calling them a bot or whatever, but this person's talking about propaganda, and so this guy goes to, you're talking about Fox, right? So I said, nope. Do you not know what propaganda is? I cannot even wait for you to wake up. I'd be so embarrassed for being so sure of yourself. It'll be a great day, and then I'll have all your comments and my responses. I'm thinking of doing a video, just reading out the rude comments I get, and you just so happen to have left plenty. So thank you for pushing my videos out to more people, but also giving me content to talk about. So he says, a lot of comments saying nothing. So I say, I apologize if I made that too difficult for you to understand. I was letting you know that I have every single comment you've made and my responses to them saved, so I can make an entire video of the shitty comments from you and people on your side. So even once you do wake up and try to hide the evidence of everything you fell for, I'll have it saved so you can't pretend like it never happened. When you look at them all laid out in one place, I mostly just feel bad for you and what a sad life you must have. And then I was just thanking you again for helping me get my videos to the people that they're meant for. Because every comment you make only pushes my stuff out farther, and I couldn't do it without your help. Now, I also see right through you. You actual like the negative attention. When I actually talk about real issues, you ignore and deflect, say things like, that's not worth a response, then write paragraphs about how I'm being mean. Well, you support PDF files. I don't care if your feelings get hurt. So I say, I've yet to see you attempt to talk about something serious, so I'm not actually sure what you're talking about there. These people don't have morals, she says, as she supports a PDF file who was best friends with Epstein, as she blames those two girls who lost their lives in a hit and run because they instigated it. So I said lies, lies, and more lies, which is exactly what I'm talking about in this video. You're free to believe whatever you need for you to feel special, but I'm telling you, you're on the wrong side of history. I actually hate the negative comments. It reminds me of the nasty things my ex would say, and it gets me shaky. I can handle them, but maybe try asking rather than assuming. And not just on here. Try in real life. I bet you'd suddenly stop putting people off with your attitude. So then he switches up. Do you want to talk about how the economy is collapsing and the price in grocery stores are doubling? He says, Asmongold is a World of Warcraft streamer that uses a dead rat as an alarm clock. Yes, I'm serious. When the sun hits it, it starts to smell. He knows it's time to get up. That's who you're listening to. He has no political background or knowledge. So I say, you don't need a political background in order to have an opinion on things going on in the world. I like that he explains his reasoning behind the things he says. It's not something you can do when you're just reading off talking points and putting your TDS on display for everyone to laugh at, which is why we keep seeing liberals getting caught off guard the second they can't fall back into their pre-written script. It's very entertaining for the people who recognize it for what it is. So again, I ask him, who are you talking to? He says, a couple of maggots. Nice. So I say, I could have a completely opposite view of things than people and still manage to find something nice to say rather than to put someone down. It's definitely your I'm smarter than everyone here attitude that caused people to go out of their way to avoid you. If you're looking to change, then I'm happy to continue engaging. I'd actually be really happy to see it. But if you're going to continue this, then I'm just going to be done with you. And he says, she can't and won't explain, but trust her, she's right according to her. He says, hey Sarah, pick one. Release the Epstein list today. Never ever release the Epstein list. So I said, in what world would that choice ever be up to me? Find someone else to play your this or that game. It's childish. And he says, the president of the USA bragged about going into the bathrooms of teenage girls to look at the goods. You voted for the very thing you fear. So I said, your obsession with him makes me glad you aren't important enough to ever get close to him. So he says, when you realize I'm right, are you going to apologize? So I said, what would I have to apologize for? Did we have an imaginary argument that I was unaware of? So then he says, Sarah supports Chomos. So I say, I don't think I can support something if I don't know what you're talking about. Do you not have a job? He says, why don't you Google Kristi Noem dog? You're talking about some random streamer when you put a dog murderer in government. So I said, more things you take out of context and get yourself upset over a completely imaginary situation compared to what was actually described. You're talking to someone who believes a bullet out in the bush is more humane than a needle at the vet's office. Just because you don't understand something doesn't make it evil. He says, first of all, Trump didn't do shit. Did you see about the Qatari military base they're building in Idaho? So I say, nope, I genuinely do not care. The only thing I want to do is wake people up to the lies they've believed for the last going on, 11 years now? It's time to wake up. No new wars. Lie. So I say, fact check it, dumbass. So he says, he said it himself, smart people don't like me. So I said, see, I used to fall for this, where I'd look into what the situation actually is, see that it's nothing like it's being described. So then once I go back with more information, there's always a brand new lie I've never heard of. It's exhausting trying to show people the things people have misrepresented, only to have you guys turn up your nose if I speak the words you aren't getting the full context. If I didn't care, I would just give up trying to get through to people. It's not fair what the media has done to Trump's reputation. If you're too good of a person to be able to put yourself in his position, have your friends and family turn against you only because you decided that you've had enough with the corruption in the government, I bet you'd want someone like me who could see past the headlines and see your true intentions, despite what people who have never met him, never had a conversation with him, you've only ever heard about him. If you choose to only listen to people who have never met him, then you're just being ignorant, especially when you have people saying to you, you have this completely backwards. Just ask ChatGPT or Grok or whatever you have and ask how the media can turn an entire population against one single person. Try it. What Kimmel said was not a joke. It wasn't even offensive. It was true, point blank, period. And CK was a bigot who supported what happened to him. So he said, you are scared of the question, you are scared of the answer and what it means about you. So I said, it sounds like you're trying to get to know more about me without actually asking. Somebody had commented, so I had said, have you watched the news in other countries? All of them have huge respect for Trump. I want you to take a step back for a minute. But yeah, so he commented, she's in way too deep, appreciate your humanity and reaching out. So I said, you're too kind. He likes to agree with all the people that like to write shitty things. He says, yeah, go look at the drone video of Gaza. Peacemaker my ass. He supported a genocide for the last year. It looks like a rapture already hit Gaza. So I responded, yes, and since Trump has said absolutely nothing about this, which means he supports it. Only he did make a statement already. and said what would happen if it continues. You can ignore all you want. I prefer to stay hopeful rather than negative about absolutely every single thing. You sound miserable to be around. So then he says, Sarah, I didn't like Trump before 2025. The idea that he was respectable or respected is laughable. Yes, the people that didn't know anything about him except they liked watching junk food TV like The Apprentice might have liked him. Those people are not, you pick a word. So I said, I never said you liked Trump. I said that he was liked right up until he announced he was running. The difference between you and I is that there was a point where I wasn't so sure that Trump just wanted to help people. So I looked into it more, and it turned out I had just fallen for the media's tactic of clipping sentences completely out of context. I'm actually willing to consider the other side of things because I have. If anything would have happened to Biden, says, yeah, go watch Russian news. And North Korea, they love Trump. So I said they have articles A, translation, maybe. It goes without saying, but here we are. Your mother is the sane one here. So I said, that's great. I'll let her know that she's got you on her side. It might actually help my case. He says, F ICE. If Dems ever get in power again, there will be prison time for ICE agents. So I said, for American citizens doing the job they were instructed to do, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Then he does his big, long, like, copy and paste, I am a stranger. It's just Bible quotes. Oh. So I say, good for you, finding the copy and paste button. Copy this, Trump's achievement and how the left spins it. I dare you. It went through court. 12 jurors were presented evidence, and jurors that Trump's lawyers handpicked all found him unanimously guilty. I can't say that word. And the judge compared it to the grape, said it's a distinction without a difference. So no, Sarah, wrong as usual. So I said, only in your head. He says, is that extremely well-documented case in my head? I mean, what the crazy lady went on TV and said. Oh, this is today. So somebody commented, you read this like a good 6th grader. So proud of you. And then he got a smiley face. He deleted it, but I still have it. So this is just going to help with the context. So I had said, I'm not sure who you're talking to about or to. It's amazing to me how much hatred you have for so many people, yet believe it's the rest of us that's the problem. And I still don't know who he is, but I respect your opinion. Good, I wouldn't want you to waste your time. I know how comment threads work. You and I, go back and forth almost daily. You see how easy it can be when you are playing your games. Okay, so I want you to know, while I was laying on my back getting water and crud in my eyes and behind the dusty fridge doing wiring after driving 3 hours and 3 hours back, what were you doing, Sarah? Were you making excuses for a clown? So I said, wow, you sure can draw a picture of being absolutely nothing more than a decent person for helping your mother. He says, great son, I might say. So I said, I respect your opinion and don't have enough information to form my own. I could jump to a conclusion based on my experience with you, but my experience dealing with you has absolutely nothing to do with your relationship with your mother, so I wouldn't do that. See how easy it is to be decent to strangers? You're the only one here that believes everything Trump does is for himself and evil. I don't care what bullshit the media has spun into this sob story you seem to believe. My mom thinks like you do. Only I have hope for my mom to wake up from this madness, because I'm not going to give up explaining how things have been twisted and manipulated, leaving out the full context. They did it with Charlie Kirk. They still haven't stopped doing it for Donald Trump, even though they know that they're getting normal people all riled up thinking that Trump is the next Hitler. It's a joke, and you should be ashamed for the things you've said about people who only want to make the country safer for you and keep more of your money rather than it going to the government where it ends up basically going missing. Yeah, he totally deleted all of his responses. So nothing makes the troll happier than when you feed it. So I said, it's okay, I use it as practice, not letting stupid things bother me. And I definitely don't have balls. I'm definitely braver than you, if that's what you meant by balls. I don't have to watch the video to know speaking up is better than going along with something that's wrong.